We now have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Conflict of interest statement. In accordance with North Carolina Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid both conflict of interest and appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this board if there is a conflict of interest or appearance of such conflict. If a board member has a known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before this board today, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the matter involved. Does any member of the board have a conflict of interest in any matter coming before the board today? All right, item 5A. Is there a motion to approve minutes of October 24th, 2022?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item 5B. Is there a motion to approve the regular minutes of November 28th, 2022?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any, are all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Old business, we have none. New business. We will now have election of officers. This is an annual nomination and election of chair and vice chair as required by the planning board rules of procedure. I will now turn it over to Lynn.
This is something that is required by our rules of procedure, is that a new chairman and vice chair are nominated and elected by the board annually. So I will just turn it over to you as the chairman to accept nominations, and then a vote will have to be taken for each position.
All right, do we have any nominees for chair of the planning and zoning board?
I'll nominate you.
A second?
Wait a minute. Is there any other nominees? Is there any other nominees?
No, you have to have, you have to be nominated first.
Well, you can have more
We're
than
gonna
one.
have more than one. We'll have more than one. What else we got?
All right.
Anybody else have one? Well, then I guess that's it. Now we have to
No
vote.
different than what's been presented.
Okay. Is there a motion to nominate a chair for the planning and zoning board? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Yes, sir.
Is there any discussion? Can I get out of it?
No.
It's part of the deal.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Too late, baby. Raise your hand.
Do we have any nominees for vice chair for the planning and zoning board?
Karen,
Mark.
we have two.
Two marks. One.
All right.
I second Karen.
I second Mark.
Taylor.
Okay, wait
Or
a minute.
Taylor.
One nomination at a time.
All right.
All right.
Mark Taylor and Karen.
Okay, who nominated Karen?
I did.
And she don't.
Yeah.
Okay, who nominated Mark?
I did.
Fair.
We are competent, trust me.
Okay.
Can I second Karen?
Sorry.
You know it's gonna need a woman's touch.
I
You
know.
leave it to the men.
Trust me, I know.
Okay.
I'll pay you after.
All right, I guess we can do show of hands. Is Karen, who's wants Karen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Two bedroom. Okay. Now
All
you
right, who wants Mark?
Gotcha.
That woman's touch.
All right, now I guess we need to go ahead and do an official, we're gonna do, I don't know if that works like that, or we can just, I think we'll do Well, I guess that works, right?
Yeah, I think you're good.
Okay.
Okay, we need a second for Karen.
Well, we had, well, okay.
Who seconded that?
I think I did.
Okay, gotcha.
Very good.
All right. Let's see. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yes, sir.
No, all right.
All right.
Another year, Randy.
Yeah. All right, item 7B, adoption of the rules of procedure. The rules of procedure for the planning board require that they are reviewed and adopted annually. I will now turn it over to Lynn.
Every board has a set of rules of procedure. The planning board is no different. The set of rules are adopted annually by this board. Any changes or anything you would like to, alterations you would like to make to the document, you can decide that amongst yourself, make a motion to do so. We would have, of course, forward that to council. But if there are none, you would just go ahead and make a motion to adopt them as written.
Okay.
I have two suggestions, sorry, if it's not for you to
Yeah. You go.
So I would propose that we start at 6. And also I would ask that our attorney be here for all our meetings. I think that's very important. And we've had questions before in the past and we have not had the attorney here.
Okay. I don't know, is that something we can write in the rules? of
You all can
procedure?
decide amongst yourself, yes, because they're your rules of procedure. So you can make a motion to make that recommendation to council, that those additions and changes be made, those amendments be added to the rules of procedure, and then I would take those to the board next week and ask them to approve them.
No, we can, does it actually have the time, 7 PM in the rules of procedure? It
Yes,
does?
I
Okay.
believe it is.
And Lynn, I don't know if this is when we would make this change, but I also feel like the TIA needs to be a requirement for planning and zoning.
Yeah, that would be a UDO. That's something that, well,
And we need to take that to the UDO then, because that needs to be something we need to
Okay.
address. Because with all the large development we've got coming in,
yeah.
with the TIA not being prepared for us so that we could review it prior to that meeting, I feel like that is essential to us with these big developers coming in. Even though don't vote, I just got some suggestions.
And that might be more of a policy change. We
Yeah.
definitely wouldn't add that to the rules of procedure.
Yeah.
We could add it to the UDO. We could just take that recommendation to town council and get them to say, yes, this is a policy, a procedure that we want you as a department to follow.
And I
So,
guess just with this coming out, I feel like we need to go ahead and address it.
Right.
Because we just have too much growth coming in. We need that.
And the rules of procedure don't have to go to town council, they're our rules.
they're your rules, but I do believe council has to approve them if I'm not
I don't
mistaken.
think so.
Okay, I'll double check that, and if not, you
Well,
all can go ahead and make that vote
We're
tonight.
supposed to have 7 days, it states in here something about 7 days prior to it, so I don't think we can change it
But you,
without having that in front of us, I don't think,
okay.
for 7 days.
Well, if that's the case, you all want to consider making those changes, what you could do is go ahead and adopt the rules of procedure this evening, and then ask staff to bring those changes back next month, and we can prepare that document and bring it back to you as an item on your agenda.
Okay.
Could I ask the question, Lynn, also on that? If we can't do it, is the UDO also the one that would make decision whether town council can make decisions without a TIA?
Well, like I was saying, we could handle that one of two ways. The ordinance requires the TIA. It states in there that a TIA is required for certain types of development at a certain density. It does not talk about timing of the TIA in terms of when it's involved with the conditional zoning. or when you all have to see it, or that it has to be presented as part of the staff report and the information that staff provides to you all as a board. So we could either amend the UDO and put in there a time frame stating that the TAA must be complete and submitted as part of a conditional zoning application, or we could just make it possibly a policy. But either way, I mean, and if you all want to handle it as an ordinance amendment, I'm happy to do that. Andrew and I are working through the UDO and making, as you can see, lots of changes as we notice them and feel the need to bring them to you all, especially right now since we don't have a lot of rezoning cases before us. That will change. So we can do it that way as well. If you all as a board want to direct us to prepare that, that would have to go before council as well, since it is a text amendment. So if you all wanted staff and directed staff to make that change, we could put something together, bring it to you all for consideration, and then take that to council for adoption.
Yeah, I think it should be in the UDO. That it can't be submitted or to actually come before planning board, it has to be complete. Now, they can come talk to you all and work out some other issues beforehand, but I don't think it should come to us without it.
You're talking about the TIA, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I agree with that.
completed one.
I agree. Good
Matt,
catch.
I guess we gotta get back to what we can do on this.
If you all could adopt the rules of procedure, and then if you agree with Ms. Bartlett and want to direct staff to make those changes, I will do that, and we can put that on the agenda next month for consideration. And then in terms of the UDO changes, if you all want to wait until after we hear our public hearing items and want to discuss that and give staff some direction, we can handle it that way.
Okay, sounds good.
So you had what, 6 a.m. or 6 p.m.?
6 a.m., no way. 6 p.m., just because we've been here so late several times, and you know just as well as I do, we're growing. We've got tons more stuff coming at us, and I don't want to be in here till, we've been in here till 11 o'clock at night. So I just feel like if they really want something changed, they're going to be here at 6.
Now, is that gonna work for everyone else and staff?
People at work.
It definitely works for staff. We're here anyway, so yeah.
And does it
Works
work
for
for
me.
everyone else?
I don't have a problem with it, but, you know, I'm not working anymore. If I was working, I would say,
Lucky.
"No."
Yeah, stop.
I'm working, but it would still work for
It'll
me.
still work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like Barry, I'm not working.
And let's see, the other item was,
Require the attorney to be in
I
attendance.
don't
just
know
because
if
we've
that,
had
I
questions.
don't know if we can put that in the,
The town clerk pointed out that we would have to pay our attorney to be here for that time, so that probably would have to be approved by town council.
I feel like it should be, just because we've had multiple times, we've had questions and the attorney not being here to answer those. Because we do, I mean, there's tons of stuff I don't know, so it would be nice to have them here to say, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't do that, because like I said, I've been here multiple times. I've only been around for 5 months, but the times that I've been here, we've been here multiple times, and the attorney there's been questions for the attorney that we haven't been able to have answered. I feel like this really is important for our town, and he needs to be here. I mean, I can't imagine that they would disagree with that.
I don't know, I've been doing this for a couple of years, and I can't think of an instant, maybe one time we really needed it. Maybe once.
This happened a couple of times where we've been like, well, that would be a question for the attorney, and we haven't been able to answer it. Since I've been here.
I don't
it's
think he's
happened.
gonna wanna do it, quite frankly.
What about if we were to ask, what about if we asked guidance from council? Would they be entertaining the idea of having the attorney
I think it's a good idea.
or his designee to be present for our meetings at a much reduced rate?
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree that we do have, with the growth that we're going to have and what we're having right now, we may have that situation where the attorney may need to weigh in on things. Worst case scenario is if we can't figure it out, we just postpone it.
Yeah, right.
And so I mean,
Worst
I
case
think we
scenario.
need to answer it and get it off the docket so we can move forward. I agree, but if we just ask council for guidance, would that appease
Does the attorney come to every council meeting?
Yes,
Yeah,
he is
so-
at the council meetings, that's correct. So if anything comes up from this board that's forwarded to council, you know, he's hearing that and he has privy to it. He's reviewing what comes out of this board.
Now, could it be, there's certain items that not likely to need them, and there's other items that may. Could it be on a case basis?
Absolutely. I mean, if we have an item coming up and you as the chairman, or, you know, feel like you would like to have the attorney here, we can ask, you know, the town manager or council if that's acceptable, if he can come and attend those meetings. The only thing is, because it would, if there is a situation where you all really feel like you need legal guidance, it is difficult for you all to table an item. Just because there's some specific statutes that say you have to make a decision within a certain time frame, unless the applicant agrees to it. Now, if they say, sure, we're fine with tabling, you're good. But it's very difficult for you as a board to table something.
Right, so I think, I mean, this is something that costs money, so I'm sure we're not really able to do this on our own. I don't know that it can be put
Right.
into our rules of procedure, or that part of it. The other part can.
Correct.
Okay.
You know, I think, like you said, we would need to get council's guidance on that portion of it.
Okay, so right now, I think what we want to do is adopt these rules.
I got one question
Go
other than that. In these objectives and procedures and duties, can planning board go into a closed session?
That I have never seen a planning board go into a closed session before. And I think if that were the case, you probably would need an attorney there if you all decided to have a discussion in private. And there's only certain things that allow you to go into closed session. Like council can't just do it for anything. There's very specific reasons, and it's part of the general statute that says these are the 3 reasons you can go into closed session.
What about us meeting prior to the meetings, especially with these larger developments, instead of us? I know other towns do
long
it,
as it's not
so they
too long.
have a pre-agenda
Right,
meeting.
right.
They have their discussions. and then
Our
they-
council does that. I have never seen a planning board do that, but if you all want to do it that way, it would have to be an advertised meeting. We would have to notice it,
It would be open to the public.
and it would have to be open to the public, yes.
If we had a quorum.
Yep.
So if you had, you 3 or whatever, and do it that way, then.
I mean, it'd be a special meeting, basically.
Mhm.
But if you're talking about like a working session meeting, is
Well,
that
I'm
what
just
you're?
saying, only when it's like the big stuff, like Barium Springs, man, that was way more than one meeting. That we really could have really focused on making sure that we had certain things in line and felt like we didn't have the time for that. I'm not saying it for like tonight, yeah, fine, do it, be done. But when we have those large developments like Barium
Yeah.
Springs and
Agreed.
stuff like that, I feel like those, we really need to put more time in.
Yeah.
I mean,
And we did attempt to do that somewhat. We did. It's just very difficult for people to find the time to do that. But I agree 100%. But if something like that comes up, we can definitely schedule something and have a meeting if you all are willing to do that, where we could have a separate meeting where we met to discuss, you know, bigger projects like that.
And I guess we could say at that, we won't make any motions at that meeting. That's just for
For
information.
discussion. And that doesn't need to be in the rules of procedure. I don't think we need to write that in there. I think we have the ability to do that.
Anything else on
Good.
that we want to change for? Okay. Well, that'll be for next month. Okay. Item 7, adoption of rules of procedure. Is there a motion to adopt the rules of procedure as written for now? I mean, we can't
can we
change
not
them.
make the change
Well, we're
now
making
so
the
that
change
you can
at the time.
update it for next month?
I think I'm sorry.
What I think we're can do is give them what we want to change, and they can bring it back to us with those changes for next month.
Correct.
And we can,
So we don't need to vote on it then.
well, I guess we're supposed to adopt these.
You can go ahead and adopt them, and then we can amend it.
We
It's
can
it's just,
amend it next month.
this is a procedural matter.
Okay.
We can do it as often as we want to.
Yes.
So really the one amendment that we have at this point in time is changing it to 6 o'clock
Yes,
after all of what's been said.
Mhm.
Okay.
yes. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in here it says that we have to have that information 7 days prior. I guess to send it to us ahead of time would be good, so we do make sure we have it 7 days ahead, like it says in here. I'm pretty sure that's, I just had to find it.
I think that's just for the, I know what you're talking about, but I can't.
Let's make sure that we may be able to change it. Let's read that.
And another thing, if we can get these, like, for today, we probably didn't have to come pick it up because we didn't have, like, maps and stuff. I'm wondering if we could get an email, or I don't know if that's a security thing.
Well, okay, yeah, we can do that. Because
Just
I
for-
mean,
Just for ones that are
Yeah.
similar to this, because otherwise we have to drive, by, which
And,
I was
yeah.
working in Charlotte most, or in classes
Mhm.
in Charlotte most weeks.
because I think, I mean, I thought I scanned it and attached the packet. Did you all get an attachment with the email? Okay.
Right here.
We normally just get the
Agenda,
agenda.
yeah.
The only,
Oh, sorry, you're right.
I
I'm thinking
agree
about a different
with
board, the DRB. Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. We can attach this. We can just do it all digital if you all like. I
Even
mean,
the
the maps. I mean,
I
they're,
don't know if everybody else
Right
wants
there.
it that way,
I
but it
don't-
would make
Oh,
it
I'm
easier for
sorry.
me.
yeah, we can
I
do that.
think if we could request, so you wouldn't have to make as many copies. I'm kinda old school and printing and all of that. I like having paper,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
so.
I do too.
Well, we
But-
can just
Go both
scan
We can do that, right?
and send, when we send you all an email saying, hey, the agenda packets are ready, we
Right.
can just attach it to the email.
That'd be perfect.
Okay, here's where it says, on 11.2, rules of procedure within the limits set by law may be amended by an affirmative vote of membership present on a duly convened meeting, provided that such proposed amendments shall have first been submitted to all members in writing at least 7 calendar days prior to the meeting at which the vote is taken.
I'll make sure you have it prior to 7 days. I can even go back and make the change this week and go ahead and send it to you guys, and then just put
Yeah.
it in the packet.
That's,
And then
I
that
was-
meets the requirement.
I was just trying to see if we could do it today, but it looks like the way it's written, we really shouldn't, or couldn't, not supposed to.
Yeah, because it says Article 6.1 says 7 PM.
Yes,
So we'd have to-
so we'd have to amend that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So then, what are we gonna do next week, next month? Are we gonna meet at 6 or 7?
we'll meet at 7
7. Right.
because it's still 7.
What I will do is I will go back, make the change to 6, and go ahead and send that to you guys this week. So you meet that 7-day requirement, and then I'll also just put it in the agenda packet. But just to make sure that that 7-day requirement's met, I'll just go ahead and send it out, because it's a very minor change. But next month, we'll have to meet at 7, and then we'll begin meeting at 6 if you all adopt that next month, in April, right? Yeah, April. It is
And-
February
and the-
still.
And the public needs to have time to be aware of that, and change it on.
We'll post it.
town.
Right.
Yeah, that's after daylight savings time too.
Throw another wrench in it.
Do what?
Throw another wrench in it.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion to adopt the rules of procedure as written?
Make a motion.
Okay, second? Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Item 7C, case number TA 2302, text amendment, EV charging station request initiated by Drewberry Engineers on behalf of Tesla to amend Article 3 of the UDO to allow electric vehicle charging stations as an accessory use with additional standards. I'll now turn it over to Lynn.
Just to give you a background on this request, we did receive an application from Dewberry Engineers on behalf of Tesla to install 12 electric vehicle charging stations down at I always forget the name of the gas station, but I think it's the Exxon on this side of the interstate on the right near the Arby's there at 123 Julian Place. And we didn't have any language in our ordinance that would allow us to give them a permit to do that. So we recommended to them that they submit an application for a text amendment, which they did, and then we as staff did some research and put together the language that we're presenting to you this evening. We would recommend that the planning board consider amending Article 3, which is our land use provisions article of our UDO, that would make electric vehicle charging stations an accessory use on our use matrix, which is 3.3.1. And then we would also suggest that we add a section 3.4.41, which is our additional standards section, which basically regulate these uses. And what we're recommending, and I'll go through these very quickly, the main thing is that we would allow these or recommend that these be an accessory use, that they would be, basically the parking calculations is what we have to take into consideration. Every use has a parking requirement. So what we want to make sure is that these EV stations are not taking up parking spaces that are going towards the principal use there's minimum parking standards. So if there's 20 parking spaces required there at the Exxon, we want to make sure they still have those 20 parking spaces once these EV charging stations are installed. So that would be one of the requirements. One is that we would suggest that when these are located in any multifamily development, that the type that's installed is limited to a level 1 or a level 2 facility. I did a little bit of research on this. I'm not an expert. I'm sure the applicant can address this better, but there's different types of chargers, and we would recommend that any residential development would have a level 1 or level 2, and that they would be available for use of the residents and guests only. We are getting some multifamily developments in town, and I do believe that the one that we have discussed will have EV charging stations, so this will apply there. We would also suggest that when located in a non-residential or mixed-use development, that the EVC space be located in a parking lot that serves the principal use. So we don't want there to be a situation where we just have a big old parking lot full of EV charging stations. We want to make sure these are an accessory use. I've seen these in many other applications. Grocery store parking lots a lot of time have these, as well as gas stations. We would suggest that the EVC space and equipment be located so not to interfere with any vehicular, bicycle, or pedestrian circulation, so that they're out of the way, they're to the side of the building or out in the front, as the case that this applicant is requesting. We would also recommend that the maximum height of these be no more than 9 feet. There's other equipment, that would be the station itself as well as any equipment. I believe this is a industry standard. The related equipment, including transformers, switchgear, and other similar items, must be screened with a fence, a wall, a berm, evergreen landscaping, or any combination. So a row of hedges, something like that, just to screen them from the road or adjacent uses. We would also suggest that the installation of these EVC spaces, including associated equipment, must apply for and receive all the necessary permits, not just a zoning permit from the town, but any other permits that are applicable for electrical, building permits from the county, that type of thing. This is just a copy of the use table. Here we're showing these as permitted uses in the RM, which is our mixed residential, where you might see those multifamily developments, as well as mixed use, and then of course all of our industrial and commercial districts. So that's the end of staff's recommendation this evening. The applicant is here, so if you would like to hear from them, I'll give them an opportunity to present their request to you. And if you have any questions of staff, I'll be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Lynn. The applicant would like to speak.
Yeah,
Please sign in at the roster.
absolutely. Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, we're proposing 12 chargers at that location Lynn mentioned. It is a level 3 charger, which is up to 250 kW, kilowatts. I believe the level 1 is 120. Is that right?
Excuse me, I apologize. We just need your name for the minutes.
Lucas Phillips. Sorry.
And, yes. And then I'll give you mine once you finish. And then mine's Tyler, and the last name I can spell it for you. It's Davoren, Davoren. And if it's helpful to clarify, as far as the level 1, 2, and 3, it typically just correlates to charging speed. And so level 1 would be just a 12 volt. So that would be regular plug that you would plug your phone into. That would charge, depending on the vehicle, about 3 to 5 miles per hour. So that could do, if you're not driving all too often in your garage overnight. Level 2 is most typically what's used at residential dwellings, in garages and multi-unit dwellings, and that will charge about 30 miles per hour. So that's typically an overnight type solution. And then what we're working on the Tesla side is level 3, and those are the highest speeds. Those are going to be a full charge in anywhere from about 30 to 45 minutes.
Now, these are superchargers?
Yes.
Okay, because when I was reading this, it said 1 and 2, and I'm thinking, 1 you can do in the garage.
Right.
I know that, you just plug it into the wall. But 2, I know is a little bit more. But these are superchargers.
Correct.
Okay, this is the real deal. Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
want to clarify.
Staff was just recommending the 1 and 2 in a residential situation or setting.
When you say 1 and 2, so the 3 would be like at the service station, and the 1 and 2 would be in the development?
In a multifamily development, yes, we would allow that there.
Why would we not do the 3s there?
That is completely up to this board, but maybe you can answer that. If
Yeah,
that's-
I
We're
think.
talking lots of people.
Yeah, we have done it before where you'll have a mixed use that has retail and residential. That might be a good fit for the quicker charge, but I think most often the quicker charge is most compatible with a situation like what we're looking at here, where it's next to a convenience store, designed for customer visits, 30
Right.
minutes to 45 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, our level 3, this particular charger is for road trips, whereas the level 2 is for longer use. So that's why it's a quick, easy off the interstate and right back on. So.
Yeah, if someone traveling or something may come
Yes.
charge and keep going.
Yeah, I think I saw her driving on over here, right?
No.
Oh, I was driving over as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
How did you determine the number that you needed? The quantity of chargers?
So
How's
we
that determined?
typically do 12 right now. That's our standard.
It's just across the board?
Yes.
That's,
Yeah, and the reason for 12 most often is we want to make sure that it's sufficient to where, at worst, we would never see all 12 being full, but close to it. Big thing is we don't want to have the chargers built out and then they're not used, but then we also don't want to build insufficient to where there's queuing, lines, waiting.
and that's where the root of my question is, if there's a formula that you've determined being next to the interstate, certain amount of traffic and certain, just north of a major city, we need X number of chargers, and that's where my question lies, in the quantity that you've requested.
Yes, and I think our standard build for kind of the U.S. Southeast is typically about 12.
Okay.
That's normally sufficient. There are some areas like in, urban Charlotte, urban Atlanta might have need for greater in a given area just due to population density. But for, to Lucas's point, for a lot of the customers that are driving through the area as well as the local population, we found that 12 is typically the best number.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Mhm.
We have a site right down the road in Mooresville at the Lowe's Foods. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but in case you want to put your eyes on it and see what it looks like, it'll be just pretty much just like that.
Anyone have any more questions?
I got just a general question. Does it provide a adapter, or does the person, if they don't have a Tesla?
To use the chargers?
No, I'm under understanding that if you're not a Tesla, the other Audi or whatever, you have to have a charger. Not a charger, adapter.
Adapter.
Yeah, for these will be built just for Tesla use. That being said, I think it was as recently as a month ago, we actually announced that our hardware, both on inside the vehicle, like the receiving end, as well as the adapter itself, we've made those designs public. Other manufacturers are allowed and welcome to adopt those designs into their vehicles. As of now, as of today, it's just Tesla that's using them, but that could potentially be the case in the future.
So
But
if somebody had something else, they would have that adapter with them to charge at this location.
maybe,
My son has one, and he told me that it would require, he has an Audi,
yeah.
and he said that he would have to have his charger to use a Tesla charging station.
As it is right now, we don't produce any adapters for other types of vehicles to use ours. The plan is that, by making our hardware plans available and the design specifications available to other manufacturers, they may adopt that for their vehicles. There may be other solutions that come by way of adapters, but as it is right now, it's just for Tesla and then any manufacturers that adopt that.
That's a general question, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely.
So for clarity,
Mhm.
okay, I got a Ford Mach-E.
Mhm.
I can't use your charger.
As of right now, no.
Not yet.
Oh, well, that's not good.
He's saying that they have got that's in line to make it so that people can adopt.
Yeah, well, so the onus would be on other manufacturers. If they wanted to enable their vehicles to use our charging infrastructure, they would need to adopt the hardware standards. And we've made those public, so other manufacturers could, in theory, adopt them.
But how could, like Ford's not gonna make one because I wanna use Tesla charger, right?
Mhm.
So what if I wanna use Tesla charger? Is there an adapter that I can buy?
As of right now, no. The solution would just be to use other networks.
So you have to, wow, it's rather inclusive, isn't it?
To date, it has been, but the intent behind us opening up the design standards for other manufacturers to adopt has been pretty significant to allow other manufacturers to make that decision if they'd like to either continue using their own charging infrastructure or to be incorporated into Tesla's network.
Not to get into politics, because I don't wanna make everybody mad. But I understood that Biden was trying to get Tesla to open it up, which they are, if you're sharing now the specs so that they can go out and actually do that. They're not gonna do that. And if they do it, it's gonna take a long time before they do it. So the other people can't use chargers.
Mhm.
That's what I'm saying, it's kind of inclusive.
Yeah, as of right now,
Not
it
fair
is.
to everybody,
Mhm.
but Tesla's paying for
Mhm.
them, right?
Right.
Those are Tesla chargers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how do they pay for that? I'm probably getting way too much in depth. How do you pay for a charge?
Like for a user going to plug in.
Like say I got a Tesla, how do I pay for my charge?
Oh yeah, it's best
Just
way
like
to
any
describe it.
supercharger, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What
Essentially,
does the guy with the Mach-E do if he's got an adapter? How's he do it?
given that that's not something available right now.
Okay, we don't know.
Yeah, but as far as how it would actually work, if you were driving a Tesla going to a station, you plug in and then the charging post itself communicates with the onboard receiver on the vehicle.
Does the Mach-E have a CCS?
I'm not sure.
So Winston-Salem has a CCS adapter charger, a level 2 charger there. And there's a sign with a QR code. You scan the QR code with your phone, it brings up the app, and then you put your credentials in, your card information, and you can charge like that.
Okay,
There's one level 2 charger there, yes.
so that's level 2.
Yes.
So could you guys do some level twos there?
At this particular location, it's not a good use case because it's a quick service station. You know, level 2 takes more time to charge, so.
Yeah. It's not very efficient.
If it's at a mall or, you know, a couple larger stores that they would spend more time in, then it would make sense.
Thank you. Anybody got any other questions?
Maintenance of the units, I'm assuming, somebody runs into one, backs over it, whatever, it's on Tesla to come fix the unit, so it doesn't look like
We
it's
fixed
in
that really
disrepair.
quick, yes.
Okay.
We don't like that.
As well as the screen,
As this.
the screening that's required around it, who's gonna be responsible for maintaining the screening around the charging units?
So that is on us as well.
So fencing, plant material, that's all on
Yes.
Tesla to maintain that as well?
100%.
Okay.
Now, how does that work for an enforcement end of that if it doesn't happen?
It would be just like any other code enforcement item if it's a nuisance situation.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Now I'm going to officially open the meeting up for public comment. Don't think we have too many people here. And Kim, was there any comments that you received? Okay. And now we'll close the public comment time. Are there any comments from the board?
I think the only question I ask, I think the EVs are great, but how do we make sure the other Audi is whatever, until they have this adapter? You know, if we put Tesla in here, and they put another one in or whatever, then all the other things might be blocked out from the, it's still gotta go to more.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
it's-
trying to say?
Mr. Chairman, this is just a text amendment.
Yeah.
We're not approving Tesla.
Right.
We're just approving a text amendment that will allow EV charging stations in our town.
Yeah, it wouldn't necessarily be Tesla, it could be anybody. Yeah, this is not specific to them. I did have a question about, and I think it's been answered, but if someone wants to put one in their home, it doesn't really have to be on our
That's correct.
matrix.
If someone wants to do one for personal use at their own home, we're not regulating that. This is for commercial use only.
Okay. And the multifamily, if there's a business in the multifamily, then
That would be mixed
they could-
use.
Or mixed use, they could have they would be, if it was in the business part of it, they would be okay to have a level
Yes,
3,
correct,
but not in the residential part of
correct.
it. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Is there a motion regarding text amendment TA 2302?
I make a motion that we approve text amendment case number TA-23-02 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we need a motion regarding consistency statement of TA 2302.
With regard to case number TA-23-02, I make a motion regarding consistency of this action, that this text amendment is consistent with the 2018 strategic plan and the Unified Development Ordinance and is reasonable and in the public interest as it provides for EV charging stations as a permitted use and places conditions ensuring compatibility with surrounding land uses.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item 7D, case number TA 32-01, text amendment mobile food trucks request initiated by town council to amend Article 3 of the UDO, adding mobile food trucks as an accessory use with additional standards. I will now turn it over to Lynn.
Yes, this is a text amendment that is coming to us via direction from our town council. We are requesting that the board tonight consider amending Article 3 of our UDO that addresses mobile food trucks. Just to give you some background on this, we have had an increase in the number of food trucks here in our town that are wanting to either come in and operate on a short-term basis, and there's even some here that are operating on a long-term basis. And we really don't have any language currently in our ordinance that allows us to regulate these. In other words, there's no time limits on how long a food truck can locate at a specific location. There's really no language that talks about how these can be used for special events or that type of thing. So we did some research. We looked at other towns to see how these things were being regulated in those jurisdictions. And we put together some language that we think will address some of the issues that we've been having. So we are looking at adding mobile food trucks as an accessory use on our table of uses, similar to what we did with the charging stations. So in other words, you couldn't have a piece of property that just has a food truck on it. That would make it a principal use. So these would be allowed as an accessory use on a piece of property where there's a principal use, similar to the food truck that's set up at the Food Lion. The Food Lion's the principal use. The food truck there is an accessory. So that's just an example. We would suggest these be also allowed on a temporary basis. But just to walk you through the language that staff has come up with, the first thing we added to Article 3.4 was language that basically says that mobile food trucks that are owned and operated by any local food service business can locate on the property where that restaurant or food service business is. So just as an example, say Randy's Barbecue has a food truck. He can have a food truck on his property. He can operate it there if he chooses. If he wants to have a food truck set up while his restaurant's operating, we would not prohibit that from happening. Another example would be the coffee shop across the street. I believe they're interested in having a small food truck there on a regular basis. Since that is a food service business and they want to own their own food truck, they could do that on that site. So that's something that we would suggest the town consider allowing. The thing that we would require is that the restaurant be the principal use or the food service business. Again, we don't want these food trucks set up on other pieces of property, but in this situation, we would allow them on the site where the restaurant's located. And we would also require that the food truck be in the rear yard of that principal restaurant or food service building. The second thing we did is we looked at what language we needed in our ordinance. We needed some language to regulate food trucks and make them a temporary use. Right now, we do not have language that provides for that. So what we would recommend is that mobile food trucks operate within the town. They must comply with the following: that they would be a temporary mobile food truck. So we would give them a temporary use permit for a maximum of 3 months per site and calendar year upon the issuance of the temporary use permit. So in other words, a food truck could locate at the same location. Let's just use the taco truck here as an example. It could sit in the Food Lion truck parking lot for 3 months a year, and then they would have to move. That doesn't mean they couldn't go down to the Dollar General and locate there, but they can only stay for 3 months in a calendar year at the same location. And that sort of it keeps these things from becoming de facto restaurants, which is a concern that some people had that was affecting and harming our brick and mortar businesses here in town. But that would prevent that from happening. We would also require that these food trucks have written permission from the property owner to locate on their property. The last thing we want is for food trucks to be popping up at the intersection down here at Old Mountain Road and operating. So we want to make sure that the property owner is giving these food truck owners permission to operate there. We would also require that they comply with all local and state regulations, including but not limited to the health department, environmental health, and any other environmental protections that may be required. We'd also require that the trailers, the carts, and any related storage shall be removed by the close of business each day. That the use may only be located on lots occupied by a non-residential use. That the use shall be located at a minimum of 15 feet behind existing road right-of-way. So in other words, we don't want these sitting within the right-of-way or close to the street for many reasons. They could become an issue for cars pulling in and out of businesses. You don't want to have a line of sight issue. You also don't want to have a situation where you might have a backup of traffic trying to access these things. So we would require them to be set back at least 15 feet. We require no signage be permitted except for what's painted on the actual food truck. So they can use the truck as a sign, but they can't have freestanding signs or banners or things like that. We would require that any discharge of waste and trash be properly disposed of in accordance with applicable regulations. And then we also wanted to include some exemptions. These are some suggestions that our council had, which I thought were really good. But we want to make sure that food trucks that are participating in any town-held event, either at Troutman ESC Park or on any town-owned property, that they're exempt from these requirements. We do hold a lot of special events here at the town, so we wanted to make sure that, and we have food trucks participating in those, that they would be exempt from those requirements. That food trucks that are associated with events held at the Iredell County Fairgrounds, and I left fairgrounds off there, I need to add that, that they are exempt as well. The fairgrounds also host a lot of things where you may have a food truck there for the weekend, so we wanted to make sure there was an exemption there, and the council felt strongly about that. I think they've been doing things there for many years, and we didn't want to all of a sudden switch gears on them. We also wanted to make sure that food trucks that are hired for special events that last less than 8 hours, like a wedding, you may have a reception at a wedding, somebody brings in a food truck for a few hours, or you may have HOAs that are holding events at their pool, the amenity center. I know a lot of neighborhoods do these type of things for just a few hours on a Friday night, or someone who's holding a private birthday party or something like that. They may have a food truck come for a couple of hours. We would allow those as exempt as long as the trucks are not located on the public right-of-way and they do not in any way impede the flow of traffic. So if people want to put them on private property, that's fine, but we don't want these things parked on a public street for these type of events. So that would be staff's recommendation. Again, we're showing them here as an accessory use in our commercial and mixed-use districts. So that's the end of staff's recommendation and presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address those.
Where it's talking about 8 hours or less, would that also include like a business who wanted to have a special thing for their
would.
employees?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was the intent there. That a lot of times businesses do this as something for their employees, or, schools sometimes
Yeah,
do
I
it
was gonna say
for
the schools do it a
fundraisers.
lot.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What about the food truck is on his property?
Well, if it's a restaurant or a food service business, that's fine. But if they're operating on, say, you've got a insurance,
The guy down there at the inn down here, is he on that property?
he does own the property, but he could only operate there for 3 months. This would apply to him, yes, unless it was a restaurant. If you had a restaurant there, it'd be different. But if he's just operating a food truck on a business that's an insurance office, that he would have to comply with this ordinance.
So he could actually have a group of food trucks there for 3 months over the summer.
He could. There's nothing limiting the number of food trucks. That's not included here. So if he wanted to do that, he could.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
My question was, once that 3-month time frame expires, all right, I've been here for 3 months, is there a period of time that we can state, or you've thought about as to when they can return to that same location?
It's the way it's written is calendar year. So say
3
they
months
come
and-
in, correct, if they're there from February, March, April, they can't come back till January of the following year.
But they could go someplace else.
That's correct.
So what I've seen other towns do
It does not.
is they actually break it down by the calendar week, where they say that food truck can go to that gas station 4 days out of the week, but the remaining 3 days they have to be at another location. So that's not a question necessarily, but maybe food for thought to say it can be there, but 4 days out of the week and that's it, that's the limit.
Are you,
So they could be at Food Line for 4 days, and they may have to go into Mooresville to another Food Line for 3 days, and then they could come back. And it's a way of keeping them from being
Yeah.
a permanent fixture.
well, that 3-month requirement too does not mean that it has to be 3 consecutive months. They can break that up however they like.
Okay.
We're just trying to prohibit them from being there longer than 3 months in a calendar year. So if they want to do 5 days in January and 2 weeks in, August, however they choose, we would just have to, once they come and apply for a temporary use permit from us, we would have to track it and make sure they do not exceed those 90
So
days.
y'all get to track that? That's gonna be
Yeah,
fun.
that is fun, isn't it?
But the insurance guy down here, if his insurance is the primary and the restaurant's a secondary, he wouldn't have to have a permit, right?
Well, he doesn't have a restaurant on that. There's not a brick and.
Oh,
there's-
I thought you had to be the primary.
The restaurant has to be the primary use of the property.
Oh, gotcha.
To have it continuously.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
What about somebody that owns food trucks and lives in town and they're storing them on their property?
That's a different ordinance.
Okay.
That would
I
not fall under
suspect it was
this.
different,
That's
but-
storage, yes.
Storing it, yeah.
Well, yeah, there's
Yeah. Okay.
3 sitting on a residential lot
Mhm.
within town, all right?
Yeah.
Yes, that would fall under storage of commercial vehicles. That's correct.
All right, now, under this, it's got a P, it should be a PS, shouldn't it? Because it's
Yes, thank you for catching that.
additional standards. And on item D, it says trailers, carts, related storage shall be removed by close of business day. Now, should we say trucks? I mean, you want them to move their vehicle, or are they allowed to leave their vehicle?
I think the intent there wasn't the actual truck itself, just any other type of trailer that they may use or cart that they use, anything that they use in conjunction with it. But if you want to make sure that the truck is moved daily, you can add that. We can make sure that's in there.
Comment card, the contents.
Okay,
So we're saying we want to add
it's
trucks
tidied
in
up.
there?
I don't know.
Well, like the one up at Food Line is a truck.
Mhm.
There's no truck carter and trailer. or anything.
Right.
So you need to put trucks in the beginning of that.
I mean, do you want to allow them to sit in that spot all the time, or is that?
Well, they could be there for 3 months, the way this is written.
If he's got
Okay.
permission from the property owner, he can.
Okay.
He could no longer be there indefinitely once this is
Right.
passed.
And F, I know it's talking, you're trying to keep them from blocking the view, but I'm not sure if, sometimes 15 foot, they say, well, I'm 15 foot off the right of way, but that's not good enough sometimes. So should we say or block view of traffic or impede, I don't know how we should
It
word
says
that, or
about
if
sight
it's,
distance.
Shall not
or
exceed
or is that good enough to, so that if somebody's within the 15 foot from the right of way and they're still blocking the view of traffic coming and going. I know one time we had that happen over here at Four Brothers. It was not Four Brothers now. Quality Mart. It was Four Brothers at the time, and there was I think a snow cone machine or cotton
Yeah.
candy or
Carnival.
Guy.
and you couldn't see to get in and out of the business. Now, they probably were within 15 foot, but what do you do if they're out of the, they're not in the right of way, or they're 15 foot out from the right of way, but still it creates a hazard? Do you have the ability, with the way it's written, to do something about it?
It says right here, it says shall not impede the flow of pedestrian traffic nor be located to loading spaces or vehicle maneuvering area.
But what if you can maneuver, but you can't see?
I mean,
Well,
that's an unsafe movement, which would be able to be able to relocate him.
So you can do something.
Or we could add language in there that says, will not impede, a sign of
Sight distance.
sight distance or line of sight, or, for vehicular traffic. We can add something like that.
Because I remember that happening, and I think they were told that there wasn't anything they could do about it
Yeah, that's
at
no
the
problem.
time.
Yeah.
At the time, of course, this wasn't in effect.
You could put right here at the last of it on F, in a safe manner, and that should cover it. Be able to load spaces or vehicular maneuvering area in a safe manner. And that would be able to,
Okay. Give some leeway to.
I mean, y'all would have to interpret it to me, for that, but I think that would that,
That's good to me. Okay. Do we technically need to open a public meeting up when there's no public?
I think technically, yes.
Okay.
You have to open it and close it, yes.
All right. We'll now open the meeting up for public comment. Kim, did you get any comments? I'm gonna ask you that every time. I will now close the public comment time. Any comments from the board? Okay. Is there a motion regarding text amendment TA 23-01?
I make a motion for the approval of text amendment case number TA-23-01 with the recommended adjustments for item F.
And PS, I don't know if we need to state that.
I believe the request was to add a clause at the end of that second sentence. It says, in a safe manner.
Yes,
Right.
but also in the use table.
Oh, yeah, he wanted,
PS. I know you wrote it down, but I want to put it in the motion.
oh. And PS standards, how's that?
in section 3.3.1.
Yes.
Section 3.31.
Okay. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. We need a motion regarding consistency statement of TA 23-01.
With regard to case number TA-23-01, I make a motion regarding consistency of this action that this text amendment is consistent with the 2018 strategic plan and the Unified Development Ordinance and is reasonable and in the public interest as it places conditions on mobile food vendors that currently do not exist.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay, me.
All right. You get that? All right. Item 7E, case number TA 23-03, text amendment, front setbacks requested, initiated by staff to amend article for the UDO to allow certain structures to encroach into the established front yard setback. I will now turn it over to Lynn.
Andrew's going to make this presentation.
Okay.
Staff, we've received a number of requests lately about shelters over mailbox kiosk. As you might know, most new neighborhoods now have one specific location on some common open space where they have all the mailbox. We've gotten requests to put some shelters over those kiosks. However, we have nothing in our ordinance that addresses having structures in your proposed front setback. So section 4.2.1D mentions exceptions to setbacks. And so with that, to address this particular situation, and I also threw bus stop shelters in there. I know at this present time we don't have any, but you know, if we keep growing and ICATS gets its stuff together and we actually have some kind of a transportation system, maybe we will have some bus stop shelters in the future. So I threw that in there as well. And this is really simple. What I've done is I've gone to section 4.2.1D, which that whole language was included in your packet. But I've added 10 to this, and the way it reads is it's mail kiosk and related shelters, bus stop shelters, or any other similar public structures shall be permitted to encroach into the front setback on lots used as common open space or lots used for public purposes, so long as the structures do not interfere with the required site triangles, adjacent driveways, or street intersections. And then we also threw in a little snippet in there about the EV charging stations that Lynn had spoken about 2 items ago, just so those are covered as well. And that's really it. It's pretty simple, and I'll open it up for any questions.
Who would be, if somebody was to sideswipe one of these, would it be up to the private HOA to repair?
Yeah, yes.
Do we need any verbiage to say such?
I mean, they're on public property, or private, it's common open space, but it is HOA property.
Right.
So
I
think
didn't know if we needed to delineate that.
I mean, we can if you think that's something we want to add in there. That's,
I mean, I just trying to see why as far as what we were,
you know,
you know, but maintenance of that would be up to the HOA, but I mean, like bus stops would be for us.
that's right. I mean, and, you know, I guess we could somehow address that if you guys feel the need to. Or have any suggestion of any language you're looking at?
No.
The only thing I'll say to that, and I respect your question and trying to clarify one versus the other, but it's still private property even though it's a public area, and that there would be responsible or the person that sideswiped it, of course. If we built like a bus stop type cover that you're speaking of, meaning we as a town, then obviously the town's liable for that. So it's no different than building anything on any other property. That person's responsible for it. And you certainly can add language, but it's redundant in my opinion because it's understood.
I'm good.
Any other questions? All right.
Well, actually, I do have one. The design of the structure, is that part of the approval process that we have
Yes.
currently in place with the design review board?
No,
Or
these are
forward?
basically, they're basically open air shelters with 4 posts. You're typically looking at like, the ones I've seen are 14 by 18. So you've got an open air shelter, 4 posts with a roof on it.
Right, but for like an HOA community that, I know what you're referring to, all the mailboxes are now in one spot within the community, so they'll put up individual mailboxes, but a structure over that mail stop, we'll call it, would that have to be reviewed, the design of it? They can't just throw something up there that,
Well, it's not the intent of the staff to have the design review board review those? I mean, typically you're just looking at 4 pieces of wood with a roof on it. I mean, I guess if that's something that you're interested in adding, we could and bring that to council, but it's not
Yeah.
our intent.
And I think we need to remember too that we don't review the mailboxes. I mean, that's not something that the
Exactly.
DRB is looking at either. And so that's something to consider.
And I was getting ready to add, these are things that require a building permit. So whether they engineer or have somebody to engineer, just FYI, that's something because it's public use area, it does require a permit before it can be built. Not necessarily the design review that you ask about, but there is a permit that's required of the county before that structure can be built.
I think
Understood. I'm just, since this is new, my mind just goes to not allowing just what might be considered what's aesthetically pleasing and what's not. From an engineering standpoint, it's gotta be safe. And it needs to be, structurally sound, but from an aesthetic standpoint, is there any teeth to keeping it within a certain standard?
Again, staff has no interest in having the design review board
Okay.
review these, but if this board would like to add that language to forward on to council, we're more than happy to.
I think it needs to add the shelter itself needs to mimic what it is, like the house has the, we had the certain common,
The exterior
the
features.
exterior has to match certain things, couldn't have,
Siding.
siding, you had to have, cedar shakes or whatever. Those accents need to be of the same characteristics of the house or the pool or whatever that it's in that. I don't know.
Similar to when we're reviewing pool clubhouses, we're looking at the facade of the pool clubhouse and how it relates to the homes that are being built. And there's certain standards put to it. So just any old structure can't be built that is maybe not fitting into an
Since
appeal.
most of these neighborhoods are conditional zoning approved, and they have aesthetic requirements for the homes, we could reference something like the structure must meet
Should
the
mimic
aesthetic
the-
requirements of the conditional zoning or something along those lines.
Yeah. I think it needs to, I would say four posts and a roof, but I think it needs to mimic what's the house or the pool or accessory or whatever it needs to be, have those same accents.
All right. All right, I'll now open the meeting up for public comment. And Kim, all right, now close the public comment time. Any other comments from the board? All right. Is there a motion regarding text amendment TA 2303?
I'll make a motion of TA 23-03 for approval with the amendment of the facade being of accents of mimicking the existing structures or proposed structures.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we need a motion regarding consistency statement of TA 2303.
In reference to TA 2303, I make the motion that we, in regarding the consistency of this action, that this text amendment is considered consistent with the 2018 strategic plan and the Unified Development Ordinance and reasonable in the public interest, and it would be allow structures used for public purpose to be located in these areas where they are intended to be located.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item 7F, case number TA 23-04, text amendment addressing where sidewalks are required. Request initiated by staff to amend Article 7 of the UDO to clarify where sidewalks are required in new developments. I will now turn it over to Lynn.
Andrew's going to handle this one as well.
Okay.
Okay, this is kind of to provide a little bit of clarity to the UDO. regarding new development where sidewalks are required. We've got a little bit of contradictory language in our UDO. I'll say the intern that Stan had hired to copy and paste from another town's ordinance, I don't think was updated correctly. So anyway, what I'm suggesting, section 7.5.1A shows what is allowed, where sidewalk is supposed to be. The first step in it is in all locations specified by the Troutman pedestrian plan and any other applicable adopted plan. That's fine, I think that's good language. The second one is along both sides of the street, and this is how it currently reads. In the RM, NC, OI, CB, and HB, except alleys, lanes, parkways, rural roads, as specified in the street classifications in section 7.7.3. Well, the street classifications in 7.7.3 do not recognize parkways or rural roads, so it has no teeth at all. So what I'm looking to do is just eliminate that 7.7.3 at all and require sidewalks along both sides of those districts you see, except alleys, and then on one side of the street in RS and RT. And I'll also say the one thing I'm really happy to see is to take out the rural roads, because the way that you kind of can interpret that is we have a lot of developments on what they call farm to market roads. For instance, Autumn Leaf Road, your two-lane NCDOT road that's got just a roadside ditch on it. Well, those are technically rural roads, and so we have no teeth to require developers to put a sidewalk along those main roadways right now with the way this is written. So I think by taking that out, we can now start requiring sidewalk along Perry Road, Autumn Leaf Road, Westmoreland Road. So I just think this cleans it up, just makes it a little easier, and that's the amendment that staff is proposing tonight. And I'll open it up for any questions.
Anyone have any questions? For Andrew? Okay.
I have one. When you sidewalks, we're talking about cement, or is it any kind of material?
No, it's a 5-foot wide cement sidewalk.
Okay.
All right. I will now open the meeting up for public comment.
And they're quiet tonight, aren't they?
Kim? No comments from the public? Okay. Now close the public comment time. Any comments from the board? Okay. Is there a motion regarding text amendment TA 23-04?
I make a motion that we accept as presented TA 23-04.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Now we need a motion regarding consistency statement of TA 23-04.
You may read it, or you want to make the motion? Yeah, I make the motion in reference to TA 23-04 in regard to the consistency statement, that this text amendment is consistent with the 2018 strategic plan and unified development ordinance and reasonable and in the public best interest, as it would clearly define where sidewalks is required in new development, providing Troutman a more comprehensive pedestrian infrastructure.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, item G, case number TA 23-05, text amendment. Feather flags requested, initiated by staff to amend Article 6 of the UDO regarding the use of feather flags. I will now turn it over to Lynn.
Yep. This is a text amendment that's being brought to you all by staff. We are asking that you all consider amending Article 6 of our UDO, which basically is, well, it is the article in our ordinance that defines signs. The type of signs we allow, where they're allowed, the number that are allowed on property. And we specifically are looking to add language that regulates feather flags. I'm sure you are all familiar with what a feather flag is. There's one at the coffee shop across the street. They're these tall signs that have a long flag on them, and they kind of flap in the wind very nicely. But we just don't have anything in our ordinance right now that regulates those. This is another one of these loopholes that's in our ordinance where we have a section that talks about flags. It allows flags. It allows commercial flags. So this has been used to permit commercial flags or feather flags on property. So we did some research. We looked at other towns to see how they were regulating these. We found that Mooresville just doesn't allow them at all. They don't allow them as a type of signage. Statesville has an ordinance that basically the way it's written, they're really not allowed there either, the way the restrictions are. I've included that language, I believe, in your staff report. But we took a look at this. We do have some feather flags in town. The one thing we want to try to avoid, people are using these as a sign, as de facto signage. So they're not going through our sign permitting process. They're just putting a feather flag up to advertise their business. So what we're recommending is that these be allowed as a temporary sign, that businesses can put these up for a very short period of time for things such as grand openings, or if they want to advertise a special event, say they're having live music and they want to have a feather flag that says live music on it. They can put it up there for a short period of time. They could come to the town, get a temporary sign permit for this for no more than 12 weeks per calendar year. So in other words, they could do it 1 week a year. That would allow them to use these signs for grand openings, special events. That's how we would recommend the town allow these. And then that we would also put some dimensional standards in there. Right now, I think it says you can have a flag that's like 3 by 5 feet. That's really not the commercial standard for these feather flags. They're much taller than that. We did some research. We found that they can be anywhere up to 18 feet, even higher. So what we're recommending is we allow these up to a height of 14 feet, that they not exceed 14, which does meet an industry standard. It's within that range. So that's staff's recommendation. We just wanted to bring that to you all for your consideration as to whether or not you want to start allowing these as temporary signs. This is how we would recommend that be handled. That is correct.
And so we're proposing to do this for 12 weeks total for the year. So if they want to put an open sign, they can do open for 12 weeks.
If that's how they choose to use it, yes.
What if they want one of those little crazy looking people that are waving their arms around?
That would not be permitted. This is specifically, that would actually be a different type of sign. We would consider that yes, I know. I know, we would consider, that'd be considered a moving sign. That's addressed in a different part of the ordinance, if I'm not mistaken. This is just feather flags. These are flag signs.
Could it be just for special events?
That is what we're, well, that's a good.
Only for special events,
not
open
open
signs, and.
You could do that.
Stuff that's consistent, I mean.
Yeah.
Personally, I would hate to see a million feather flags
Yes.
as I go through Troutman. But, if we've got, for example, when they have the vendors over here, or farmer's market.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things where it's happening once a week and it's only for a couple of hours.
Yeah. And I'm looking at this language too, and I'm thinking another thing we'll probably definitely want to consider is limiting this to one. And I think we do now in our ordinance, but I just want to make sure that that's not something we're leaving out. Is that in a different part of the ordinance, the number?
It says 1 week per month.
I think it is one. Does it say it up there? My eyes or my contacts are not that great. Okay. Yeah. So one per property, once, 1 week a month. And then you're right that you could limit it to use. I mean, in terms of what you're advertising, you could limit it to a special event or grand opening.
I mean, 1 week per month. I mean, if I said live music Thursday, I could put it out every Thursday.
You could.
And that would be 4 times that month. So I could still put the flag up every Thursday for the rest.
You could put it up, correct. Mm-hmm.
For all year.
You could.
Okay.
And also, Mr. Taylor, just to clarify, a different part of our ordinance allows these temporary flags it has a specific time frame. So for example, if they put it up on a Monday, it can't stay until the next Monday because of the different part of our ordinance, even though it says that. And just food for thought, this also would prohibit, like some of the food trucks, being y'all passed that ordinance, showing up and then putting flags out to say the food truck is here.
So could we make it so that they have to put them away every night, or
You
they're not
could,
just flapping in
yeah.
the wind all night
Yeah.
long, and then when a windstorm comes, nobody's out
Right.
there, and they're going across somebody else's yard?
Yeah, and the intent of this is for it to be an on-site sign, not something that they go put down at the corner, because those are signs that definitely have
Well, like
to
the
be.
food truck, you can't use any signs other than what's on the
That
truck.
is correct. That, we put that in the food truck language.
If I had a pub or whatever, and I put the flag out every Thursday morning and said live music Thursday night and retrieved it at the close of business on Thursday, I could do that.
Here one day. Yes, you absolutely could.
I mean, I'm just trying to think like a farmer's market, like a Friday, Saturday. I could do that on a Friday and Saturday, and that's just 2 days out of the week, and I still could be in compliance.
Correct.
Okay.
And also to add to that, we have encouraged as a town to use the A-frames or clamshells that they're called.
Mhm.
That way, they go up in the day and come down at night. That ordinance is already there for those type of signs for those special events as well. And whatever that be, if it's on site,
Mm-hmm.
that A-frame or clamshell that it's nicknamed, that they can change it, just like we used to do here for events.
I think that's awesome.
Is vinyl banners fall under this ordinance?
It does not.
Okay, so
This
that's,
is a feather flag only.
right, but do we have something about vinyl banners?
For nonprofits, yes,
Okay,
but not for like grand openings currently, that's how our ordinance is written.
So,
because I'm sorry, yeah.
if, and I'm thinking about your coffee place, because I know they do have a lot of events. If they were to do the farmer's market during the summer and have an event, they wouldn't really be able to do two.
Well, fortunately, that farmer's market's on a separate piece of property, so they could.
Okay.
All right, we'll now open the meeting up for public comment. Kim, is there any comments? Now close the public comment time. Any other comments from the board?
I've got an additional question, and maybe I missed it. And see, it says feather flags, so is there a limit on the number of flags?
I think, yes, one.
Just one, okay.
One per property.
One, okay.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion regarding text amendment TA 23-05?
Make a motion to recommend approval of test amendment case TA 2305 as presented.
All right.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We need a motion regarding consistency statement of TA 2305.
Make a motion regarding the consistency of this action that this text amendment is consistent with 2018 strategic plan and the United Development Ordinance, is reasonable and in the public interest as it places conditions on mobile food vendors that currently do not exist.
Feather flags.
Feather flag. I should have said feather flag, but I saw it and I thought, oh, we'll say feather flag. We won't say mobile. Sorry about that. I read good. There's stuff on there. You know, it's kind of,
I think that's what this is.
That for minutes.
That was the replacement for that one.
Can we do it, or do I have to do it again? Are we good?
You're good. You're good.
I got a question. It's totally, yeah, I should have used those. When I was, this goes way back to the beginning of our conversation tonight, when we approved, all these things that we do annually. Can I ask a question about
Well,
what we
let's
decided?
finish this motion.
Yeah, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Does
I
somebody-
second it, I'm
okay.
sorry.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now, other business,
Can I ask now?
now you,
Okay. I read this and I couldn't figure this out, and I'm thinking of the people that sit in this row. It says there's 7 people on this committee. Does that include Kim?
There's a 7th member who just has not been here for the last year because of health reasons.
Talking about Ken.
Correct.
Okay, and I'm counting people tonight. I know it's gotta be, it's gotta be wrong, And I would've been remiss if I had said something. So even though I was wrong, at least I said it.
I know, Lynn, you got something, cause it,
Well, yes,
Okay.
you all wanted to discuss, I guess what I need is direction from you, this board, to make the requested amendment to the board, the rules of procedure, to change the time to 6 PM. I believe we were going to have that discussion. Was there anything else you all wanted to discuss?
yes, sir.
Also, for you all's consideration, Lynn and I have been working to get a class for planning and zoning that talks about different things. If there's anything specific that you all feel that you're not as comfortable with or would like to know, or a specific topic, please make sure, I'm not asking you to come up with it now, but please make sure within the next couple days that you email either Lynn or myself or both to state what those things that you all would like to make sure is in the class, so that we can forward that to the group that's going to be teaching it, as well as the other things that's just standard. Some of it will absolutely be repetition to you all, but it will confirm or teach you a new method of whatever has been happening. But if there's anything that you all feel you would like to know more about, as far as your roles as volunteers as planning and zoning board, please make sure that we know what that is, so that it's incorporated into that training. Town council may also attend that. There will also be one for Board of Adjustments, but the reason they're not combined, other than the obvious, that's a quasi-judicial board. You all's is a recommendation board. It still requires 2 different things. Even though the basics of how to conduct a meeting, for example, are the same, we follow Robert's rules. Lynn is going to be sending, if she didn't already this afternoon, just a reminder, as we've talked to a couple of you, that says, hey, give me the refreshers or the pointers on Robert's rule. That's one of the things that she will be sending out to all of you all, like I said, if she didn't already. But if there's anything else, please let us know what that is. It's our job to make sure that you all are comfortable in what you do, how you do, and how you expand. Even though several of you have served many years, I find these type of classes a good refresher, just to remind us, if nothing else.
And I think the other item is you all wanted to discuss, if I'm not mistaken, adding the TIA requirement to the UDO, and I guess you were just looking for direction. I think that was the other item that you all were going to give staff direction on and make an official motion on that.
Yes. We're wanting to, I think
You all were wanting to make sure you want to have applicants, you want to add language to the UDO that basically makes the TIA a requirement before anything is presented to the planning board for consideration.
right.
Yes.
And we need to make a motion.
If you could, just make just directing staff to create
Okay.
that language that would be presented to this board and then ultimately to town council for final approval.
All right. Anyone want to make that motion,
You got it.
Well, I'll make the motion that we direct staff to,
Investigate proper language.
I was trying to come up with investigate the possibility of requiring the TIA to be presented, be a complete TIA presented to us prior to,
An applicant coming before the planning and zoning.
And we would probably make that the draft TIA.
Mhm.
Okay.
well,
Because final TIA, that could take months,
Oh,
the review process through NCDOT.
But the draft TIA can still be changed. So I would prefer it to be complete. Because that way you make sure that you got all your,
So you're requiring NCDOT review and approval before it comes to this board as well? Because that's complete.
yeah, that'd be complete. Because that way, it gives us the time to review it as well as, not as a board here, cuss word, as well as other people, you yourself have the opportunity to look at it as well. And we can have an open dialogue on what they're requiring.
is that realistic, Lynn?
Well, typically we get the TIA, the complete, a TIA that the applicant has completed, and that shows what the recommendations are from their traffic engineer. That shows what the numbers are, what the recommendation is, and then there's another step to that TIA has to be sent to the DOT office, and they have to review it, and then they make recommendations.
What's the time? What's the time?
That
That's
can
step
take
2.
months.
Months?
It can.
Well, then that's not realistic. That's not realistic.
You are correct, but
What do Mooresville and Statesville do? Is it the draft?
Well,
They don't do either.
I spoke to some of the planning and zoning, and they said they do.
the draft.
Mooresville has to.
And another thing that they do through conditional zonings, and this is a conversation that the manager and I recently had, is Mooresville, I know, does what's called an MOU, I get that, thank you.
Memorandum of
That
Understanding.
they take the conditions from the conditional zoning, because a lot of times what council will do is they will make the approval of that conditional zoning contingent on whatever DOT recommends is what's required through that, because, you know, a lot of times they do have the final say, but they do work with towns. So maybe what we need to do is just think through, is there a way to improve this process? Is there a way to bring NCDOT into the process maybe sooner, rather than sitting back and just waiting for a TIA? If there's something that we see as a town, I'm just trying to think of if there's improvements that we are even qualified, you know, to make. I'm just trying to think through this, but they're to get back to what Mooresville's doing, they're doing that MOU where they're basically taking the conditions from these conditional zonings, putting them in an MOU that's sent to NCDOT, and they have that in front of them when they're doing that TIA review and recommendation. So if there's something that the board felt strongly about, so say we see a rezoning and you guys want there to be, y'all really feel like there needs to be a signal down here at Old Mountain. You know, you could condition, the town would really feel strongly there needs to be this signal. If the applicant agrees to it, you can put that in that MOU and send that to them as part of the recommendation from the town. So that might be a way to handle it. And I could do a little bit more research on that, speak with Mooresville and get the details on that and see if I can just bring it back to you all. And we can have that conversation.
I think we just need a basis for that to be brought forward so we can look at it prior to.
Okay, well, why don't we look into some things, make some recommendations, and we can put it on next month's agenda for
Please.
discussion. Because I think I understand what you all want, and maybe we need to just think through the best way of getting us there. Because I am concerned that if we do wait till that for the final TIA, we would basically be asking these applicants to wait for, you know, months. It takes them a while to review those things.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your motion now?
My motion is to advise council that we would like to meet at 6 p.m. instead of, in lieu of 7, as well as direct council to investigate a streamlined approach for incorporating TIAs into our review process. But
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
And who said that? I didn't look at the phone. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, there weren't.
And was there anything else?
That's all. What about the attorney thing?
We would have to basically discuss that with the town manager and council. And that, if you all want me to take that to the board for consideration as something, that he's required to be here every month, we can do that, but
Well,
that would
I think
really.
maybe looking at, like the barium, the Wakefield project, if it's a big project, maybe that might be something that you might consider, depending on the projects.
Right.
Because we are, just an advisory committee, but we want to be well-informed and make sure that we're making the right decisions and having that right conversation and using the right language when we're talking to any developer.
Okay, do we want to put this in a motion, or do we just a discussion? Just fact finding, see what we can do
Yeah.
and what makes sense, and I know that's an expense, so it's
Yeah.
not, I don't know how much of an expense that is.
I can do some research, and on those 3 items, and, well, 2, the 6 o'clock, I don't think will be a big deal. I'll have those changes to you all, but the other 2 items, I'll bring back some information for discussion next month.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
got you on that
opposed? Yeah. Well, that was next.
I'm waiting, anxiously.
One day we're gonna-